Hello and welcome to Enhance Your Life with Noni Carr. And this episode is titled Enhance Your Life with a Little Equanimity. So I've decided that I'm going to learn to meditate. And one of the key components of meditation that I've been learning has been to approach your state of mind with some equanimity, or as it's sometimes referred to by the teacher, easygoingness. So it's this sense of easygoingness. So he sets it up as a process of you take a few breaths and you approach this meditation with this sense of equanimity or easygoingness. It's this process of It's this mindset of allowing, just letting things be, and allowing these emotions to just kind of flow through the emotions, the sensations, and the thoughts, to just allow them to sit there and to just be. And as I've been learning this, I've been fascinated with my own ability to learn how to focus my attention and to allow those intrusive thoughts or those various sensations of comfort or discomfort as I sit, the various sounds that I might be hearing that might be distracting for the focus of the meditation, and my ability to allow them to just kind of be and just sit there and not distract me or to move my attention away from the focus for that meditation. And I thought that the idea of this is actually about how can we practice this, and then how does this have an impact on our daily life? And it's something that we might not necessarily recognize as having an impact on our daily living, but it does. And so it's this. So I want to talk a little bit about this idea of equanimity or easygoingness. And it sort of fits quite nicely within the practice of mindfulness, obviously, which is a form of meditation, but also within a form of therapy I quite like, and I've done a lot of training in, acceptance and commitment therapy. But it also fits, so I've spoken about Dr. Carolyn Weeks before. Possibly I've referred to her on a couple of posts and on social media. And Dr. Carolyn Weeks was an Australian doctor who was born in the late 1800s and did her training, I think it might have been in the late 20s or 30s, 1920s, 1930s. And she experienced a fair bit of anxiety, but at the time it was understood to be nerves. And she wrote a book called Self-Help for Your Nerves, and a number of other books which sort of talked about the same sort of ideas that she has. And I read her biography over the holidays, and loved the book, and it was really very interesting. And I've spoken about her ideas with a couple of clients as well, but her ideas really echo this idea of equanimity and this idea within acceptance and commitment therapy or ACT of this idea of noticing and accepting these intrusive thoughts and sensations and allowing them to just be. And Carolyn Weeks talked about a floating through. floating through those emotions and feelings and those sensations, those disruptive, intrusive thoughts. And this is what we talk about within acceptance and commitment therapy as well. We can notice those thoughts. We can give those intrusive, uncomfortable, challenging, unwanted thoughts our attention, and this can intensify that experience of those thoughts. Or we can allow them to just sort of be off there behind us, beside us, and we can shift our attention to something that might be more aligned with where we want to be, or what we want to do, or how we want to be. And so I'm sitting here in this these meditations, and I'm hearing this repetitive suggestion to approach this meditation with a sense of equanimity, this mindset of easygoingness, allowing these sensations, these thoughts, these emotions that we might not want in that particular moment to just kind of be and to float through them. And I'm curious that this is this repeated message that I'm getting from a number of different sources, that when we have these challenging, uncomfortable, unwanted thoughts or sensations or emotions, those experiences that we find really quite unpleasant, when we have this and we try to fight it, we try and resist that sensation, we try and push it away, we try and stop it, the experience that we're not wanting, we're trying to get rid of, just kind of intensifies and becomes more uncomfortable, more challenging, more unpleasant. And the more we fight this experience, the greater that intensity becomes. But when we approach it with a sense of this mindset of easygoingness, this equanimity, this idea of noticing, accepting that it's there, that maybe we can't change it, and floating through it. And this idea of noticing that these experiences pass. If you think about the last time you felt anxious or angry or distressed about something, it didn't keep going. It actually passed. Even though in that moment it was incredibly uncomfortable and you really didn't want to feel that, when we allow ourselves to notice, accept that it's there, that yes, it's uncomfortable, yes, we don't want it, yes, we'd like it to go away, we'd like it to stop. But if we notice that it's there and we allow it to run its course, then it passes. Time passes. The sensation, the emotion passes. It's this idea that we get to some extent from Buddhism. So Buddhism teaches that everything changes. We keep moving forward. We don't go back. And it's the analogy that when I first learned about this idea from Buddhism that was spoken about was a stream that is dammed can become, the water behind the dam can become quite stagnant. But when we allow that water to flow, it's always changing. And the course of that stream might change over time. But the water that's there in that spot is always changing. And so when we think about our emotions, maybe these uncomfortable or unpleasant emotions, these ones that are difficult, that we kind of don't want, if we can cultivate this sense of easygoingness, even though we might not feel easygoing when we're feeling angry or anxious or stressed about something or frustrated, if we notice that emotion. Sometimes labeling it can be helpful, and we can shift our attention to something that might be more helpful in that moment. So when I talk about how we manage anxiety, when I talk about this with clients who are anxious, one of the first things I talk about is breathing. When we are anxious, our breathing becomes quite shallow and short and sharp. And if we are able to shift our attention to, rather from the anxious thoughts that are racing through our mind, the really uncomfortable sensations, physical sensations that we might be experiencing, so the butterflies or the churning stomach, the pins and needles in our hands, or the hot sweatiness, or the hypersensitivity to various sounds and things that are happening around us. If we can shift our attention from all of these sensations to our breath, we can allow those sensations to be there, and we can shift our attention to our breath, and we can start to slow it down and focus on the breath rather than those racing thoughts and those other sensations. It might make it a little bit easier, might create this easygoingness and allow us to slow down, calm down, and to actually start to feel more in control and more able to manage the anxiety that we are experiencing. So my suggestion is, or this idea is, to start to learn to cultivate this sense of easygoingness, this equanimity, by noticing these uncomfortable sensations. And sometimes it's easier not in the moment when we're having this really distressing emotion, this distressing situation, but maybe when we're, walking down the street and we notice a sensation and we can notice it and let it be. Or if we're sitting and we notice that we're sitting on our foot and we notice we're having pins and needles, we can notice it and we can allow it to be there. Maybe we do shift our posture, move our feet from underneath us, but we allow it, and if we focus on those pins and needles, that sensation can become more uncomfortable and more like we want to get rid of it and more like we're fighting against it. But if we allow those pins and needles to just kind of be there and we shift our attention, those pins and needles dissipate with time. And I think we sometimes, and I've seen a lot of this in various posts, it's like, when was the last time you had a bad day? It passed. The bad day was over and it's a new day, and we can always start afresh. And so this idea of cultivating this easygoingness, this ability to allow these unpleasant, challenging sensations and emotions to kind of sit there and not fight them, because they'll pass. And this is not an easy thing. It takes practice, and this is why this, for me, this practice of meditation, learning this meditation, is taking time. And I'll always have to go back. And it's not a process of perfecting it. It's a process of practicing meditation. So we don't do meditation, we practice meditation. It's always about learning and doing and things getting easier and finding new ways of doing it. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm more than happy to answer any questions about this idea of equanimity, easygoingness. You can post that, send me a message. You can find more about me at my website, enhancedlife.com.au. And as always, I am here to help you live your life enhanced. Thank you so much for listening.